past 28 years. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Barry. Yeah, so leading up to the third Inter-Korean summit this year, there has been significant attempts to improve relations between the two sides, various sports exchanges and the recent opening of a liaison office. As an international observer, what is the key issue for this week's Inter-Korean summit?
Well, we're in kind of a stalemate between the United States and North Korea. I keep telling people they didn't even meet in Singapore for 5 hours. The cultural and political and historical gap is so huge between the countries. So President Moon is doing not only fulfilling the Panmunjom Declaration, which is to visit Pyongyang, as two of his predecessors did, but he's there to improve the relationship between the U.S. and North Korea by acting as a mediator or honest broker.
Now, Dr. Barry, there is a lot of speculation about whether the two Koreans will formally end the Korean War. It's something we've been talking about at length since we started this broadcast a few hours ago. What's your take on this?
I think even a somewhat informal declaration is a good idea. Again, my mantra has been for many years that you cannot have a technical state of war on the Korean Peninsula go on for 7 decades. So although a real peace treaty would require the signatures of China, North Korea, the U.S., and probably South Korea, even though it was not an original signatory, a real peace treaty would take quite a long time for the fine print to be arrived at in negotiations. But a simple declaration, even between the two Koreas, and one where President Trump merely says in a tweet that he supports what the two Koreas have announced, that may be an important start. But I think we have to take a step forward in putting the past behind us, even if it's just a baby step.
Yeah, baby steps are okay as long as it's a baby step in the right direction. Now, President Moon has said he will aim to mediate and accelerate the process, the dialogue between Washington and Pyongyang. No easy task. But what would you say are the most critical issues and sticking points in order to tackle during this summit in order for these denuclearization talks to advance to what hopefully is the next positive forward-looking step?
He can only do the best he can. As I have said, regardless of who's president of South Korea and regardless of who's president in the United States, the overriding U.S. concern since 1990 has been the complete, verifiable, et cetera, denuclearization of North Korea. And unfortunately, the United States does not see the issue on the peninsula as a historical issue, as a cultural issue, but they see it primarily in non-proliferation terms. This is the result of nearly 30 years of a propensity in the United States for policymakers and bureaucrats to see the Korean problem in this way. But I believe for both Koreas, there's a benefit to the degree to which they can cooperate, collaborate, eventually down the road, perhaps reintegrate, but in any case, act more as a united Korea in certain respects that would not be at the receiving end of what any major power would otherwise want to elbow them into, if you will. The United States, just regardless of whatever president you talk about or whatever president may take office in the future, it's almost impossible to get out of that mindset. So I would say President Moon's challenge is to show that a great deal has been arrived at between him and Kim Jong-un, and he'll encourage Kim Jong-un to very closely adhere to their understanding so that greater cooperation can take place between North Korea and the U.S. On these concerns. Now, that said, it does not mean that anyone should realistically expect North Korea to give up its nuclear program. I think they are looking for a status somewhat like Pakistan, or even somewhat like Israel, but certainly Pakistan, which does have a declared nuclear capability. So the U.S. might be able to look the other way to a certain extent, but there has to be a lot of give back. But what the U.S. fails to understand is there have to be reciprocal actions. And it's actually, in my view, a very reasonable thing to ask, not to be asked to take numerous steps and then only get some benefit later on. But the reciprocity the U.S. feels is almost unearned because they feel so threatened by the current state of North Korea's nuclear program. But I think the U.S. needs the guts to go beyond that viewpoint and realize that there is merit to taking simultaneous steps and being patient about it and seeing small progress. But at the same time knowing they're not going to get the whole hog. They're not going to get everything they want. So that's why the working relationship with President Moon, President Trump, and Kim Jong-un is very, very important. And we don't want to delegate any of those things to any other power, whether it be China, Russia, Japan, or anybody else who thinks they would have a reason to speak their mind and have an effect. So I'm hoping for the best. And I think that third time's the charm. And it's not only the third summit for President Moon, but it's also the third summit in Pyongyang. I vividly remember the first summit. And in fact, I was in Seoul a couple days after it occurred in June of 2000. I remember the atmosphere then. So I have a lot of high expectations, but also know expectations need to be tempered and realize let's do the best we can in the immediate time frame that we have.
Well, wonderful. And we share your optimism that something good can come of this summit. Dr. Mark P. Barry, who is Associate Editor of the International Journal on World Peace, thank you very much for your perspective. We appreciate it a great deal.